We're getting into a conversation this morning, and we're going to be looking at a number of things. Enough is enough. It's on some of our headlines this morning. Kenyans, are you under siege? And those are some of the questions that we're asking. Advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Willis Otieno, is here with us this morning. Good morning, Wakili.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm well.
I'm glad to be here.
Standing on both feet?
Oh, yes. I'm still on both feet.
Good.
Since the directive is yet to take effect, illegal as it is.
Okay.
I'm glad to be with the Dennises.
We're in the company of the Dennises.
The Dennises.
Yeah. It's good to have you here. And of course, we're going into some of the legal issues around some of the things that it's like every day now, isn't it? That not a day passes when it's not a new thing that you're met with. But we'll talk about some of those things today. Dennis is one of the Dennises is going to welcome you with today's proverb.
Okay. Yeah. And the proverb today still comes from Kenya. Yeah, to go Kenya. And if you look at Kenya and the Constitution 2010 and all the rights that have been given in there, pretty amazing. But you look at where we are at the moment with regard to these human rights, and one would talk about escalating state violence and crackdown that you continue to see, especially whenever there are protests, wanton killing, maiming, and even now the shoot to kill and shoot to maim orders that do exist. And the international community has reacted to this, including to the UN Human Rights Council has given its statement on the same. You talk about the government's position on human rights, and one would say, hey, mechanganyikiwa wao pia with regard to protecting human life, protecting property and all that. And we go straight to asking the question, just how then are we implementing the Constitution 2010, which is considered a beautiful document if only it would be implemented to the T and the core. And our proverb today, a hyena or toyo cannot smell its own stench. How would you interpret that?
A hyena cannot tell that it's at fault. So that in this particular instance, I read it that when you look at the president speak and his executives, they are trying to point fingers at others. When the problem we are dealing with is right within their own circle. The stench is emanating from Kenya Kwanza and William Ruto. They are the ones conducting extrajudicial killings. They are the ones issuing shoot-to-kill orders. They are the ones who've caused the governance challenges we are facing. They are the ones who've messed up the economy. When people go to demonstrate as per the Constitution, their response is to organize goons. It's for police to kill them. There are over 300 Kenyans who've died since 2023 in protests, demonstrations. Not a single one has been killed by a civilian. All of them have died in the hands of police officers. And in that same period, not a single prosecution of any police officer or a commander of a police unit. So when you talk about deaths, it is them who've caused these deaths. Talk about destruction of property. Who mobilizes goons here and they walk around within give them safe passage to cause mayhem? We saw police vehicles escorting goons. So yes, this hyena that cannot smell its own stench think that it is the people of Kenya who are stinking. They are the ones who are stinking. It's coming from them, not from the people.
Okay. Well, you've been putting together some interesting comments over the last 24 to 48 hours. And like I told you when we were on the break, then I've been reading them and it made for some good reading, but at the same time, some good introspection of certain things. And I'm just going to share those right now with your permission. You cannot bomb your way into legitimacy. You cannot abduct your way into leadership. You cannot terrorize a nation and then ask them to sit down for tea. This country is not broken, it is betrayed, and it will not heal until the betrayers are gone. You go on to say, the fight for freedom, you have quoted Oliver Tambo here, must go on until it is won, until our country is free and happy and peaceful as part of the community of man. We cannot rest. You then said that raw power breeds paranoia. The more power one accumulates, the more they fear losing it. Every shadow becomes a threat, every voice of dissent a conspiracy. That's why tyrants often silence even their allies. Do you know what raw power does to the brain? It turns presidents into pharaohs, lawmakers into lapdogs, patriots into prisoners, and nations into open-air graves. Sellouts, betrayers, opportunists cloaked in neutrality. If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. There you quote Desmond Tutu. This is not the time for fence sitting. And this is the last one. Silence is complicity. Neutrality is cowardice dressed in academic language. When citizens are shot for marching, abducted for tweeting, and smeared for dreaming, you don't get to hide behind peace talk platitudes. You're either with the people or you're with the regime. You said these things.
Yes.
And of course you were saying this in relation to the current situation and in response to some of the things that the president said yesterday.
Yes.
Why?
One thing that we must all lose focus of is that our voice is our most potent weapon. And we must speak courageously and fearlessly. Because if you leave it that when the president issues a threat, or the CS Interior issues a threat, or the police IG issues a threat, that now we all cower. If we don't speak it, what will the people have? We must give them courage and then show them that there's more beyond these people. At the end of the day, our fidelity is only to the Constitution, not individuals. The only thing you should fear in this republic is God and the Constitution. Everybody else is fair play. And there's nothing special about a politician or somebody in political office or leadership. You are there because the Constitution makes you make you that person. It's not because of your supermighty powers or your kingdom that you inherited from your father. No. It's because the Constitution made you a president or a CS as sanctioned by the people. So why should we not call them out? Look at those who keep quiet in times of atrocity. Who are they supporting? Who are they helping? And when Desmond said it in South Africa, it was a cry of those who are sympathetic, quiet when the apartheid regime was causing them mayhem. And it was simply, even Martin Luther King, I think the original was Martin Luther King, Desmond just repeated it. It was about the silence. And what is we must measure the impact of that silence. Who does it benefit when you keep quiet? When you measure it, who does it benefit? It doesn't benefit the victim. It benefits the oppressor. Because when there is no calling out of the oppressor, he'll continue doing his oppression. He'll continue the atrocities. But when people speak out, the victim now has a voice to raise his problems. So yes, I'll speak, I'll write, I'll tweet, even at midnight, 3 a.m., 2 a.m.
Well, the oppressor here in reference is the president, William Ruto. He also expressed himself and he said, wait. And it was actually a question. Why similar opposition was not directed to his predecessors? Why him?
The first answer to that is this. As a lawyer, I will tell you, when somebody is accused in court, it has never been a defense of you to come to court and say, why am I the one being charged when somebody else out there has committed a similar offense? Today is your day in court. That one will deal with him on his day. That's number one. Number two, he should blame himself. Because he was in government, in public space, when Kibaki was there. Why didn't he put Kibaki to task? If anything, there are so many videos of William Ruto saying Kibaki must go. Calling out Kibaki from the time of 2003. There are many videos on the internet of him even leading a demonstration. I saw him being tear gassed at Uhuru Park. When Uhuru was president, he was there committing atrocities with him. You should even be lucky that Kenyans were not as agitated as they are today. But still, even during Kibaki's time, people on the streets here, we had our constitution and our voices. People were speaking. Today, he's now dealing with an increased number of Kenyans. The population has increased, number one. Number two, a more enlightened Kenyans. Then, he's not helped his cause. That man's tongue is like sulfuric acid. Why will a president stand up in the midst of all this to issue threats and a directive to shoot to maim? Now we are from wheelbarrow to wheelchair. And to him, he finds nothing wrong with that.
Can we again say he has his own, he's within his rights to be angry. Only that what he said is what was wrong.
Not be angry. Then somebody else can also say, I have a right to be angry, then I can kill someone. If you can't control your anger, that is why we have therapy. That's why we have hospitals. That you're a sick person. If you can't control your anger, go and see a specialist to help you with anger management. You cannot say that I'm angry, now I'm calling for shoot to maim. In terms of exercise of the use of firearms in this country, it's heavily regulated. But with William Ruto's administration, the firearm appears like a chicken leg, just being dished carelessly and used carelessly because a Kenyan has said something that the political establishment doesn't like. When they mobilized their own few women to go to Kilimani, that was the audience was addressing. That was a demonstration. Those people, it was their right to be mobilized, to demonstrate their support or liking for him. Why didn't they shoot him? If the message of the demonstration favors him, there's no shooting.
Well, he's directing the shooting directive to people he calls protesters who are out to destroy property, destroy businesses, and to destabilize the country. And he's after them, saying that they're trying to overthrow him.
Number one, the police cannot be the complainant. They cannot be the investigator. They cannot be the prosecutor. They cannot be the judge, jury, and executioner. If somebody has committed a criminal act, you think they have committed a criminal act, we have the due process of the law provided for. Arrest him, arraign him, take him to court. And the last I checked, in our laws, unlawful assembly, if at all there is one, that's an offense, the penalty is not to be shot in the leg. To even commit an act of destruction of property, malicious damage to property, the penalty is imprisonment, it's not being shot in the leg. So where does this thing of shooting in the leg come from? It's not supported by the law. So is it trying to tell us that he's changed the application of the law as we know it to be his own whims? And at what point does the police say, this one is somebody who meets the threshold to be shot in the leg?
Could it be perceived as something else, another directive, essentially him saying that those who go against the law should be punished?
No. If his words were very clear, we are not going to apply any other rules of interpretation. He specifically directed, if you see, shoot in the leg. Piga yeye risasi kwa mguu.
If you see any of these guys burning down or destroying somebody's property.
Piga yeye risasi kwa mguu.
Akienda hospitali.
If you see somebody committing an offense, number one, at first it's subjective. Your duty as a law enforcement agency is to apprehend that person, take him to court. There is nowhere that it says if you see someone committing an offense, shoot them in the leg. If you have a problem, if you need to use a firearm, the parameters within which a firearm can be used are prescribed in the law. And if whatever threat you're seeing at that whatever instance you're seeing at that particular point does not meet the thresholds in the act, you don't use it.
Willis, we hear enough is enough. Enough is enough in terms of people looting and destroying property. What we're not hearing is enough. Police, stop killing innocent Kenyans during demos. Please follow the law. Why are we applying these to favor one party?
Because what happens is these legacy politicians, when they're not able to account to the people, they resort to threats. When people are demanding for accountability, applying their constitution to demand for accountability, their response is threats. Some even you hear saying you have to wait until 2027. No. The constitution did not say Article 37, the right to demonstrate peaceably and armed and to picket, can only be exercised once in 5 years or in 4 years. No. It's a right that exists every day. And it's also within the right of any Kenyan to demonstrate on any issue. A Kenyan can even demonstrate every single day of his life that Ruto must go. That is the only message of his demonstration. That is his right. As long as you are peaceably and unarmed, you can demonstrate every single day you wake up. My demonstration is about Ruto must go. He doesn't have to wait for any term limit or any time of elections. And going within our constitution, there are parameters of going. One of them, he can resign. That's a way of going. 2, he can be impeached. That's a way of going. 3, maybe he's unable to he's incapacitated, unable to perform the functions of his office. And 4, God forbid, he dies, natural attrition. All those are parameters that he can leave before the end of his term. And what's the problem? If a Kenyan prays for any of these 4,
he says that
you ask him to resign.
He says that somebody wants to overthrow him, though. These are the words that he used, that he will not allow a situation whereby he be overthrown.
Nobody intends to overthrow him, I believe. It's the Kenyan people who are asserting their sovereignty. And if the overwhelming numbers of Kenyans are saying, you failed us in delivering on the mandate, it's well within the right of the Kenyans to demand of him resign. That is in the constitution. Yes, there are Kenyans who will say, we don't want to wait for the next elections. Resign. If I ask of him to resign, is that an illegal thing? No. It's in the constitution.
I'd like us to listen to the words of former Deputy President Ravi Gashaguas when he was actually responding to this one thing. Let's hear what he had to say.
There is an attempt to overthrow your government. Is for you to have the opportunity to use a terrorism act to profile communities and to persecute leaders who are opposed to your administration. Please relax. We want you to serve your one term. Nobody wants you out of government, and constitutionally, nobody has any plan to overthrow your administration.
So he said, "Look, nobody wants to do that. But if you then have this, if you feel that, because if you ask the how, then there's provision for how that can actually happen." But he seems to be at a place of frustration, and that whatever it is that is happening across, whether it's social media in the country, and you talk about this, the statements or the proclamations that he made then being illegal, against the law, right? Was he speaking as? And we look at this law again, can he give that directive? We saw the CS giving a directive that if you see anybody walking outside a police station, you actually, who gives that right to then be able to make such actions come through?
You know, in fact, the first step is that we must recognize that our constitution, and if you look at it sets out the functions of the IG of police, and it gives that office that he cannot take directives from any other office, save for as permissible in the Constitution, which is from the DPP. But legacy politicians have circumvented our police service. And our IGs have been serving at the mercy of legacy politicians. So whereas the Constitution does not say that the President can direct him or the CS can direct him, and normally if you question them, when they're put on the spot, they say, no, I have no power in the Constitution to issue directives. But the practice is, they do issue directives. And these directives that they've been issuing to the police are unconstitutional, they're illegal. But they do it to undermine our constitution. But the most important thing is they do it to further their own selfish political interests and to try to thwart the demand for accountability from the people of Kenya.
So is the kitchen too hot for the president, that he has to issue unconstitutional directives to the police? And when you look at that as well, there's a listener who's asked a question. I will pose it to you again. Is the police behaving as if they are protected with the justice system in the country?
You know, what we must say then, one is this. The justice system has not protected the police. Legacy politicians are giving them political cover. But I have a message for the police, and especially the police commanders. I have a message for you. The beauty of our criminal justice system is that there is no limitation of action for criminal offenses. The things you are doing, we will follow you. Even when you are retired, those files will be active and you'll be called to account. And more so the police commanders. Because we now have the International Crimes Act, which applies in Kenya. And some of these offenses are being committed all over here. The doctrine of command responsibility applies. The officers who have command responsibility of the units, starting from the OCSs, the OCPDs, the county commanders, all the way to the national establishment, the DCI and the DCIOs and the RGCIOs and the IG and the DCI himself. They are commanders, and they will qualify as candidates to be tried under the command responsibility doctrine for all these killings that we are witnessing, all this enforced disappearance of the people of Kenya, all these acts of torture that we are witnessing. These are crimes that are recognized in the International Crimes Act and will apply the doctrine of command responsibility. And I assure you, commanders who've served with units that have committed these atrocities, one assurance I give them, your day in court will come. Even if it doesn't come today, but I assure you we'll make sure that we follow you. Even in retirement, even if you're 80-year-old, we will come for you and make sure that you are tried in court and answer to the atrocities committed by the units that were under your control. It has happened before. They tried to protect the ones in the Baby Peto case that I'm helping to prosecute. 12 police commanders were arraigned in court for the killings of 69 people in Kisumu, including Baby Pendo. The DPP has regularly dropped charges against 8. They are still not yet free. We are going to challenge that act by the DPP very soon. 4 have been charged in court. So there is no place to hide.
Well, Wakili, outside the institutions you've just mentioned, there is also this conversation about ICC. How far can this go?
One thing that we must first say is that for these crimes, if you look at the thresholds for crimes that can be tried in the ICC, number one, they must be systemic. They must be widespread and targeted against a civilian population. You can see they are organized, they are widespread, they are targeting a civilian population, and they are being done by an organized group, the state. So it has met the threshold, if you ask me. The threshold for international crimes has been met. These are crimes against humanity. And I will not be surprised when in the not so far future, you're going to see indictments being issued. But I will not even be concerned more about ICC. That's even a more laborious process. It takes more time, timorous. What we are now exploring as options, we have the concept of universal jurisdiction, where there are countries across the globe that have recognized that there are certain crimes when committed against civilians. They are so serious that they concern us. Even if the crime is not committed in our country, that does not even affect our national, but it affects a human being. So under the concept of universal jurisdiction, we'll just go shop around here, across the globe. There are some countries in Africa, most of them are in Europe, where you'll just go and file your docket, and seal docket, and the magistrate will issue a warrant of arrest. Even before.
From another country?
Yes. How do you...
Another court?
There was a time when Rwanda president had a warrant of arrest, I think, in France and in Belgium.
Yes.
Did it involve nationals of those countries?
But what are the chances of honoring those?
No. The main thing is to start. You raise the tempo. Of course, for the situation in Rwanda, it was a bit more delicate than Kenya, so they had to deal with it diplomatically at some point. But it happened.
So in the Kenyan context...
In the Kenyan context, what stops me from applying for warrants against Bungei or any other police officer here?
But not against the president?
I can, even against the president. In those countries, they'll seal it and unseal it. You go and seal in another country and they'll issue it. So, there are many avenues that these things can be pursued.
But for now, we are 2 years to the general election.
Who
said?
Who said we must wait?
I'm quoting the president.
Okay.
I'm quoting the president. What he said is, tukutane kwa debe in 2027. If your policies you feel they're better than mine, let's meet at the ballot. So with those options that you had earlier given, there is no chance that he's resigning. There is no chance that he's going to... that is going to be well or impeached. That those are not possibilities. So the only option at the moment that is viable, according to him, is wait until 2027. But
that is correct.
Looking at the, if you watched his statement, as a lawyer, you try to cross-examine his statement, his demeanor, his body language in context.
In fact, for me, every time I see William Ruto angry, then I know he has lost it. He has no more plan. That's the same William Ruto was frothing in the mouth, telling Raila, "Hamta nitishe. Enough. Hakuna. It will not happen again." In 2023. It didn't take 2 weeks, and they were doing their NADCO. The same one stood here, kifua mbele, ati pitisha raka. Those terrorists will see. Called out the army. Next day, sons and daughters, I reject the finance bill. That's the one that you say can do anything. William Ruto is not a monarch. He's a president of a republic, not a king in a monarchy. To think that he can threaten the use of force. So if you want to kill, I always say this. When a regime kills the first person, once the first person dies, going forward is about defining your exit. Your duty as a president is to make sure that you don't end up killing people or permit the killing of your people by the state, by the police. Because the moment the first one is killed, rest assured there will be a reaction from the people. And your state apparatus will react by killing more. So if they kill 1 today, tomorrow they'll kill 3. The next day they'll kill 4. So it's now a path that you're defining that to you is about death. But the more people you kill, the more boldened, the more the demand for your exit will increase. The more people will keep challenging you. You're just making the situation more dire. So in your best of interest, when you find yourself in such a situation, what you should be talking about is how to retreat, retrace your footsteps, and find a genuine engagement with your people to address their issues. You cannot be standing there to issue more threats and promises of more deaths. It doesn't help your cause. It simply means now the demand for your neck to be arraigned in court once you leave office will grow louder. It's not helping him.
I'm hearing you say, and is there a concerted effort across board, or is it just people doing what they say? Because I'm looking at all of this in a circuit, that if we looked at the protests, the way in which they have come over the past few years, because all of this anger that you speak of, these directives that are being given, we didn't see this kind of behavior outside of the protest. And it started with the Mandamano of, the Sufuria Revolution as we now know it, early in 2023, and then moved to 2024 where we saw the finance bill protest, and has become, it has started to become a kind of usual thing. And that we see this display after these events take place. Is there a concerted effort? And if so, it would be a bit scary. That is there an effort from what you see to silence the voice of the people with this force or with the promise of this force? And is it a retaliatory, reactionary measure, or is it just modus operandi?
I mean, that is what legacy politicians know. To them, in their toolbook, when people are demanding for accountability, when people are speaking against bad governance, because that puts them on the spot, the response is beat them up to submission. They should not raise their voices. Scare them. Clamp down on them. That's from the typical toolbook of failed legacy politicians. So there's nothing surprising. I'm not surprised. You'll expect that in 2025, they should have revised their syllabus and come up with better ways of responding to demands for accountability. It cannot be the same batons. It has never worked, and it will not work. The more you brutalize people, the more they'll demand and agitate for accountability and good governance.
Wakili, as we talk about finding a solution to these, and if there is any plan, there is the call for conclave that has been called by one Raila Odinga, and the protesters themselves, Kenyans, are saying we do not need to sit down and talk. All we want is justice and implement and pretty much just deal with our concerns. Do we need a conclave? Do we need to sit at a table to have a discussion on respect of human rights and ending police brutality?
No, you don't need a conversation to arraign police officers and their commanders responsible for these killings to court. What you need is political goodwill. I don't think you need a conclave or a conversation or dialogue, for that matter, for the government to rule or to lead by the Constitution. Just abide by the Constitution. That's all the Kenyans are asking. But it's also well within Raila Odinga's right to ask for a conversation. Where we sit, as Safina Party, we don't believe in any conversation with William Ruto.
Why?
The only conversation we should be having with William Ruto is this. He announces publicly that I'm resigning from office. Then we have a conversation to discuss the steps towards the transition. What needs to be done before that resignation takes effect? Because what are you discussing with him when his hands are dripping with blood from these over 300 young people who have died from 2023 under his regime? And he bears the greatest responsibility for these deaths. So what conversation are you having with such a person? When your response to a people demand for accountability and good governance is direct the police to shoot them to maim. So we cannot have a conversation with William Ruto unless it's about his exit. And look at the Constitution, which are the parameters within which a conversation can be had to actualize that exit. So yes, the option that we are choosing is resignation, for example, and we should be able to have IBC and do a rapid voter registration exercise for the new voters who have not been brought into register within a month or so to clean the register and clean the register. And we have elections in this period. But if you are discussing with him and you think you're going to discuss to change anything, look at the NADCO, let's start with the last one, the BBG report.
BBI.
No, BBG.
Okay, yeah.
That's their memorandum of understanding that they signed. One of the issues that were put there as key was the end of abductions and extrajudicial killings. Just on Sabasaba alone, according to Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, 31 Kenyans were killed.
Today, 32 actually.
They're now 32.
Yeah.
And you had over 576 Kenyans arrested.
And over 100 injured.
And you still have many people being abducted. That is a basic term of their MOU. If that basic term that says stop extrajudicial killings, you've ignored it by killing now a minimum 31. In fact, if you add to the numbers from 25th and the numbers from 17th, it's now almost 57.
This was the number one item on the agenda.
This was the number one item.
Yeah.
To what to stop.
Yeah.
Now, if they cannot honor that basic one, what else are you discussing with such a person? If not his exit. Because it's demonstrated to you his incapacity, his incapability to honor his word. The only thing that has been honored in that BBG MOU is positions for wakubwa. Some ministers from this side, board appointments. So we don't want to turn this to be an elite conversation where they reduce the people's clamor for accountability and good governance to be an opportunity for the elite to get positions for themselves. It doesn't help. It has not helped. NADCO report. These issues were in NADCO report. The same issues were found their way in the BBG MOU. Not implemented in NADCO, not implemented in BBG. And then you still expect that you can have a conclave with the same characters and find a solution. You cannot. When BBG came into being, the primary aim of BBG was to deal with the issues that the youth were raising that led to the storming of Parliament. If 1 year down the line, the youths are now more on the streets than even they were last year, it tells you that the situation has not improved. It has gotten worse. The solution cannot be to have another conversation. The solution should be that this thing that we thought we were doing, we have failed the people of Kenya. Let's find another way. And that one other way is, let William Ruto resign, as allowed in the Constitution, and invite the country. Can you people have a conversation to chart the way forward? how do we get back to elections effective from the effective date of my resignation? I am Pharaoh. I have let my people to go. Let them go to Canaan. But it cannot be that I'm still going to talk to Pharaoh to discuss the terms of living. And you want to discuss how you're living with Pharaoh in Egypt. Pharaoh is going to get whips of scorpions to whip you, and now he'll tell them to double the torture. It's not going to get any better. And Pharaoh is not helping himself. When Pharaoh stands up to speak, he threatens death, maiming. And you expect people to go to have that conversation with Pharaoh when he has promised you more killings and more injuries. You cannot have a genuine conversation in such a situation.
Let's go back to the protest for a moment. And I'm just drawing this from President Ruto's statement. Well, he's rejected, and this is not the first time he's done this, he's rejected the narrative of protest, insisting that they've been hijacked and there are political actors who are fanning off the flames of discontent to disrupt national stability. And that's what led him to ask the question, why cause the chaos now during my time? Why not during President Kibaki's time or President Uhuru's time? Is this conversation veering off, or is this conversation of infiltration distracting the core issues of why people are agitating for accountability, good governance, good governance, leadership, justice? Is this a distraction? Because from both sides, so from the president's side, there are people who actually infiltrated this protest and they're criminals or terrorists. Now, from the other side, the accusation is, no, it's the state that is sponsoring these goons to destroy property during protest. It is not us. So, on the baseline, it is these two groups now accusing each other, but down here, the people who are constantly suffering every time we have this is the conversation being hijacked by the political class of the key issues that Kenyans are going through.
You know, the first thing that you must note, this legacy politicians, they're talking to themselves. Kenyans are not in that conversation. No one cares about them, by the way. They are the problem. Yeah.
From both sides.
From both sides. We are here because of 60 years of legacy politics. That's why we are where we are. And I can tell you, no one can claim to be the leader of these demonstrations, or even to be the one that represents the voice of the people. Nobody. Every Kenyan is speaking as a sovereign and demanding for a better country on their own. Let them even try to have their national or their conclave or their conversation, whichever way. Let them have it. And you'll see the Kenyan people reject them unanimously and continue with the demonstrations.
Yeah.
It's not like the state has not tried. They've tried even to marshal some of the young people and try to prop them to become leaders of the youth to speak on their behalf and to have a conversation with them. What happened? They're all cancelled.
Sure.
Because what we are demanding for, it is affecting everybody in their home. When you talk about a failed economy, everybody in the evening has a conversation with the economy at the dinner table if there's one. Many don't even have that dinner table to begin with. But they are confronted with the economic challenge.
Whereas the politics or the side that any individual would want to be on in this discourse will take center stage, we must ask the question, just like you say, the reasons or the agenda behind protests in the first place that has not been addressed. Kenya is not unique in this sense that protests take place in this country. They take place around the world. The question is, and I think that perhaps we don't address, is what do you do as government when you're met by these issues that then dress themselves up in protests? What do you do? Many would say that what you don't do is shoot people in cold blood. What you don't do is take life or meet it with violence. What do you do that is constitutional, that is legal? What do you do? Do you address people?
Do you know the beauty about the protests happening in Kenya today is that the issues that are leading to the protests are known. It's the economy. That's that tied to all of this is the economy. Forgive me before you get into governance issues. It's more the economy. And the army that should even worry any administration that cares. That you have all these young people, young, energetic, in their prime, unemployed, that when called upon to fight for their rights, they can self-mobilize and come to speak on the economy. So your response should be, how do I deal with this economic problem? And so far, the solution William Ruto's administration has proposed is not working. They thought by shipping Kenyans to become slaves in the Middle East is a solution to the young people's problem here. You cannot ship all Kenyans to become slaves in the Middle East. It's not sustainable. Deal with the problem. And one thing that we keep saying in the Safina Party, the elephant in the room on the economy is called debt. It is said the chicken of Jubilee have come home to roost.
Yeah.
That binge borrowing and binge spending of illegal debt, the odious debt, has caught up with them. And they must answer. They must pay. But they don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to open the debt register. If 70% of your collection goes to debt finance, and you keep going to the people to raid their pockets to pay for these illegal debts, the people are going to get more angry. So if you want a genuine solution, you will start by telling Kenyans, okay, this is the state of the nation today. Let's try to discuss a solution as a group.
And I hear you. Essentially, would it make sense if he said, or if the position was that I hear you? And I'm asking that question, and even as I do, one of the countries that we talked about yesterday that has protests, I mean, does the sun come up? Yes, there's a protest. That's France. There's protests against Israel-Gaza happening in Paris. There is a protest against, there's a travel disruption due to protest. There is a TikTok ban in New Caledonia, protest happening. This is still France. There is a pensions reform protest happening in Paris. 1.2 million people marching into the city. There is a protest against King Charles' historic state visit to France. There is a protest against the retirement of the president, Emmanuel Macron. There is a I can go on and on. This is all happening
today
in France. There is actually a news schedule page of the protests that take place in the country. But what has the president done? He's had a conversation and said, okay, guys, on all of these things, especially the pension reform ones, we have heard what you are saying. We are working on it. And not just we're working on it because I've said to you, but here is what we're actually doing, and here's the case that we're trying to put forth. And then, for some reason, Paris doesn't blow up in flames, and the police aren't killing anybody. Is that a method that can be followed?
Of course. But what is why can't they follow it? Not that they don't know it. You can imagine to a legacy politician, to them, if they see 1 million people in the CBD that they're not controlling, that's a threat.
It's bad for optics.
To them, yeah. Number one, bad for optics. Now, who will marshal them back home in the evening? So, when people congregate, it's their nightmare. That's the point when they see a large crowd that they can't pinpoint that this is so-and-so's crowd, who is not a member of their group, not a legacy politician. That is their nightmare. They can't imagine it, that people can self-mobilize even 1 million or even 100,000 or even 10,000 without the input of a legacy politician in the CBD. So they can't. So to them it's a fight of survival. They are seeing a threat. They are not genuinely seeing that this is an issue being raised by the people. How do we respond to this issue being raised by the people? How do we engage with them? Because if it was about engagement, even first you start with what we call the goodwill. How you address people changes. You start talking to people in a respectful manner. I recognize the issues you've raised. We are faced with the following challenges. We invite suggestions. But you don't start by threats. Promises of death and maiming. And you expect you'll have a conversation post that. It can't.
Willis, do you believe with this idea that, and for the longest time, there are people who say every week there's something new that is said to direct our attention to that thing, but there's something that is going on under the carpets. And every week, and we keep having different conversations. So today, we're discussing the president's statement yesterday. And there was the reaction now from what you're referring to, the other side of the legacy politicians. Then tomorrow, there will be something else. Now we're going to get into the weekend. Next week, there will be a totally different story. Are we being pushed towards certain narratives while there's something else going on?
Let me tell you, Dennis, don't give these legacy politicians too much credit.
They're not that smart.
They're not that smart. Because if they were smart, we will not be here. If there was something great that they're doing, something that they're doing that is undercover, they will not be here. They will have been able to control and manipulate us, that will all be supporting them. Because at the end of the day, a legacy politician, his greatest tool of trade, what he hopes for most, is to be loved by the people. They are now hated. They will all be forgiven water. So there's nothing smart that they have organized, they have planned a PSYOP operation. Hakuna. This incompetence in display. Don't give them too much credit that they have anything. What I can assure you, by the way, why you're actually shocked, because you are a rational person. You don't expect that someone will be goofing this much every day. There must be something that is sinister that is going on that we are not seeing. No. It is who they are. This is their DNA. I can assure you today, you will sue very soon. In the near future, there will be another one. They are going to do something again that will annoy so many Kenyans, and everybody will want to go back to the streets. That is guaranteed. When Kenyans were almost like giving up, that okay, fine, maybe. What sends the IG Lagat to go and complain against Albert? And they send police units to pick him from Homa Bay, bring him to Nairobi and torture him to death. Just before the anniversary of June 25th. What was that? No one saw it. Then after Albert is killed and Kenyans are doing their memorial, Murkomen there shoot to kill order. No one expected it. You want to tell me that he was planning, let me now say this one to allow me to do this thing. No. It's incompetence in display. When Ruto spoke yesterday to say that don't kill them, shoot in the leg, to him they thought now we are cleaning it. And it will look good.
It's non-lethal.
It's non-lethal. Oh, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is incompetence, and it's now demonstrating to you the capacities of these legacy politicians.
And there is
that capacity that rests in the people of Kenya. The rest of us, Kenyans, it is lacking in legacy politicians. All they have, and they've had all these years, is courage and conviction to pursue their buffoonery. While those of us were methodical in how we engage with governance.
Willis Otieno is an advocate of the High Court. He's been our guest this hour, and just getting those insights. It's very clear that still there's some way to go and to continue with these. Thank you for being here this morning and sharing your insights with us, Willis. And it's hope that we can pick up on some of these things and actually push forward in this discourse. Asante sana. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.